Hi everyone, it's Kathy with Sycamore and Cotton, and welcome to my channel. This week's video is going to be about using transfers. Have you ever had transfers where you've used most of the pieces, but you have a few leftover bits that you didn't have anything to use them on? Well, this is about gathering those transfers up and finding great projects to make use of those leftover transfers for the win. So let's get started. I'm going to start out today with this beehive that I got from Michael's, I think it was, last year at the end of summer. It was bisqueware, so it was totally white, a blank slate, and I bought it and 2 or 3 other shapes. They were on clearance. I think I got them for $1.99. So I thought this would be perfect to use up some of my leftover transfers. I start with a base coat of black spray paint, and then I follow up with using Fusion mineral paint in the color mustard. Fusion paint will adhere to pretty much anything, and so I definitely saw that as truth in using it on this project. And it is in the color mustard. I love this color. And I have a similar color by Rust-Oleum. It's a milk paint, and it's called Venetian Yellow. And they're very close in color. So, and I think actually I also have a milk paint, a Sweet Pickens milk paint in the similar color. But I decided to go with the Fusion because it has the built-in top coat. And it took 2 coats. I stippled on both coats because I did want some texture with this little beehive. And if you noticed, this beehive has a front door and it also has a chimney. So I did not paint them in the mustard color because I want them to stand out from the color of the beehive itself. Here I am stippling on the second layer, and you can see there what a difference the second made with the first. So I got really good coverage with the first, but I needed just one more layer to finish the look that I was going for. So I get that all done, and then I paint the door and the chimney in another Fusion paint, and this one is called Raw Silk. You could use any off-white or beige color that you would want to use. I just had this one on hand. But before doing that, I decided to use some sandpaper and then just scuff up some of the places, removing some of that gold paint so that the black reveals and gives a little bit more texture and dimension to this project. I did this really lightly. I didn't remove a lot, just enough to give it a little bit of a distressed texture. And I'll tell you, sanding Fusion mineral paint is a bit of a chore because it does have that top coat built in, and so it's very sturdy, very solid paint. And but you can do it if you need to and put in some elbow grease, and I did, and I used a few different grades of sandpaper until I finally, and I did use not a really coarse one, but probably a 180 to 220 worked best for me. Now I'm painting the door, and it is built into the design of the beehive, so that made it really easy, and I didn't have to do one on my own design. It also had a door handle, and it also had even the impressions in the door that make it look like wood slats. And if you can see there to the right of the door, that's actually honey pouring out. And I wasn't really sure how to make that look like real honey, especially when I was using the gold color to start with. So I just actually ignored it, and my transfers end up going over it, and you really don't even notice it. So that worked out okay. But now the chimney has little impressions in it that make it look like brick. So after I get the 2 coats of paint on both the door and the chimney, then I'll go back with a paint marker, a paint pen, and go over those impressions, or I end up drawing on my own. And I'm sorry for being out of frame here. I tend to pull my work close to me, and then I get out of frame of the camera, and I apologize for that. But it takes 2 coats. I dry between each coat. Now I'm laying out the different transfer pieces that I've pulled out from my scraps, the ones that I hope will work for this piece, and they came from at least 3, if not 4 or 5 different transfers. And it's just pieces that I had left over. That honeybee, instead of putting it on the front where I would have had to have worked it around those rounds of the beehive, I decided to put it on top and then just let some of its wing flow over the top of it. And I think it turned out really good that way. And it certainly went on a lot easier. So I'm just working, getting all of these transfers placed. This fusion paint is also a breeze for applying transfers because you have your top coat built in, and so everything went on super easy with these transfers. With this branch, I cut pieces off to make it fit around the beehive the way I wanted. So if you haven't used transfers before, they're very user-friendly in this way. You can easily cut and then rearrange how you want them to be. And that especially comes in handy when you are mixing and matching leftover pieces together like I'm doing for this project. And if you've watched me before, you know that I often use my fingers to help apply the transfer. Sometimes fingers just work best, fingernails rather. Hopefully you noticed how I'm cutting bits and pieces off of these pieces and use them differently than how they come here. I'm even cutting out just one leaf from that stem because I didn't have anywhere else I could work that stem in, but I needed a little something extra. So I'm happy with how the transfers turned out. I would have liked to have had enough to go all the way around the sides and to the back. Well, I did get the sides, but I didn't get the back. But I didn't really have enough to do that and make it look nice, so I just stopped there and went on to the next step, which is using the paint pen, as I mentioned earlier, and drawing in the brick lines. Now, I did mention that there were some impressions in the ceramic, but I did draw some of the brickware in as well, so they would be more prominent. And that's really simple to do. You just draw your lines across and then alternate your brick pattern going down. For the door, I thought I would go over the handle with a gold Sharpie marker to make it look like brass, and I did that, but then when I was applying a wax in a later step, it actually removed that paint. So I ended up just doing the door in black after I had finished with the wax. Here I'm drying that ink, or the paint rather, on those brick and the door. I also used that paint marker to go down the front of the door to make it look like the wood slats, or to make those wood slats look more prominent, because remember, the little door did have some impressions in it to make it look like wood slats for the door. Now here, after it had all dried, is where I start applying Waverly's antiquing wax, and I am just dabbing it on in the places. I didn't want to put it over the entire thing. I just wanted it to make the rows of the beehive more pronounced, so I just took it around, did a row at a time or a section at a time, and then wiped it back. So I smudged it a little, I wiped it back a little, I dabbed it a little, just until I got that effect that I wanted to give more dimension and character to this little beehive. After finishing with the brown wax, the last step was to go over the entire piece with a clear wax, and the reason for doing that is to protect the transfers. It wasn't necessary for the paint, but it was necessary to protect the transfers. And here it is. I am so happy with how it turned out. It really came out as I had in my vision. I love how the wax gave it that dimension, and I love the details of the little door and on the chimney. I love the wispiness of the transfers. That little bee, I was concerned it might be too big, but it turned out perfectly. And this is whimsical, so it doesn't have to be within the same size or colors as the rest of it. I hope you like it as well. Let me know what you think of it. And do you decorate with bees and honey in your home? The next project is actually 2 in 1. I have a couple of these little travel size jewelry cases. And actually I have more of them. I had purchased 3 or 4 online, and then I ran across one at a yard sale and it was like new. So I've already decorated it and taken it into my booth. But I embellish these with transfers, and this particular transfer right here is one that I had, the only thing I had left over from the pack. And what I used the majority of this transfer on originally was a jewelry box that I had refurbished and sold in my booth, and actually a dear friend bought it, so that makes my heart warm. But I wanted to use it up, this last piece up. I love the spring colors. I love the summery look, you know, spring or summer, either one. And I just thought it would look really nice on this pink jewelry box. It's a solid piece. It goes on easily. You do have to press a little bit harder on the type of fabric or type of material that the jewel box is covered in. I'm not exactly sure what it is. It's kind of like a vinyl. It can be wiped clean, but I do have to press a little bit harder than I did on the beehive that I just finished, or on anything with a solid surface like wood or metal or glass. When I get to the sides, I just bend the transfer over, and then I do make some relief cuts. I want to make sure that the transfer does not go over the zipper. That would be a big problem. Obviously, the zipper would tear the transfer, and the transfer would cause the zipper to get stuck. So I make sure that I cut it off before it gets to the zipper, right at that edge. And I make little relief cuts. There, I just pulled off some of the carrier sheet so that I could work more easily with the rest of it. I'm making some relief shots, and again, I get off camera because I pull my work close to me. Making relief cuts really helps. It really makes a difference in getting your transfers to lay down easily. So don't be afraid to take those scissors and, you know, cut up to the edges of the design, or do whatever you need to do. And even if you have to cut a design in half or off at a certain place, you can always piece it right back in where it needs to go. And usually you'll be able to do that in a seamless, with a seamless look. No one will be able to look at it and tell that you had done that. That's the great thing about using transfers. So I did have to cut some off around the edge, and this is the piece that I had cut off from around the front. And so what I'm doing here is placing it on the back side. And as I mentioned, you can do that. You just want to make sure that you're placing things in a way that makes them look natural and part of the design and blends in well. For the second box, I thought that the blue floral transfers would look really pretty on the white box. So I took one and I worked it into the corner. And then I just kept adding bits until I got a look that I was happy with, letting the design flow a little over the sides. I think that looks best than it just floating there on the top. And if you're interested in these jewel boxes, I will try to find a link on Amazon where you can purchase these. They're only $5 or $6, and they make really nice gifts. And if you're a reseller, they're affordable to sell in the shop. I think I priced these around $15, and they're pretty good sellers, especially around gift-giving time, such as Mother's Day or Christmas. As with each of these projects, the last thing that I do is to apply a coat of clear fusion furniture wax to protect the transfers. And I just do that by getting a bit on a shop towel and then gently rubbing it over the transfers. And that's it. So tell me what you think. Would you give these as a gift to a loved one? The last project for this video is giving this galvanized can or vase a different look. It was just in the galvanized metal when I got it from the thrift store, and here I am dabbing on a layer of DIY's Apothecary. This is a new color for me. It's one of DIY's popular paint colors, but it's new to me. I was dying to use it, and I'm so excited. So I had this vase for a while and didn't know what to do with it, but once you get a new paint color, it kind of gives you some new ideas. And so I decided to use this color to give it a new look and use up some transfers. This is actually what gave me the whole idea for doing this video on using leftover transfer pieces, but it's the last project, but it's actually the first one that I did for this video. So I started by brushing on one layer of paint, and then after that dried, I came back in and stippled on another layer, maybe even two. And if you noticed, the inside of the can was pretty cruddy looking down on the bottom. I took the apothecary paint down about 2 or 3 inches from the inside of the top. But after that, I decided to get out some spray paint, and I think it's in eucalyptus. I'm not sure, but it's Rust-Oleum. I think that's the color, but I just sprayed down in there with that, and it was such a close match you really can't even tell. And it was so much easier and faster, and it saved me from using my apothecary. And you can see here, this is pretty much where I went through the transfer pieces that I had, the parts left over from various different transfer sets. I pulled out the ones that I thought would work best for this. And what I wanted was it to look like wildflowers or growing up from the bottom of the can. And I want it to go all the way around. And I just start placing them. And again, because this is apothecary paint, now it does not have a top coat in it. So before starting to apply the transfers, I did spray with a clear satin spray to give a good coat, a good top coat to the apothecary paint before applying the transfers. Otherwise, I think that the transfers would have had trouble sticking because apothecary does not have, or DIY, this color of DIY paint does not have the top coat built in. If anyone out there knows more about this product than me, and I've said something wrong, please correct me, but I think that's correct. So I'll just, it's more of the same, just deciding where to place the transfer, burnishing them in once they're on the piece, and cutting and piecing the transfer parts on to give it that look that I want. And I'm real happy with how it turned out. I hope you are too. And here are all the projects for this video. I'm real happy with how they all turned out, and I'm especially happy to have used up some of the leftover pieces of transfers. Thanks so much for watching. I really appreciate each of you. If you've gotten inspiration from these videos, from these projects, would you please like and subscribe, leave a comment, and something that you might not have thought of before, but share. That helps so much for us to grow our channels and continue being able to make these videos. Thanks so much again, and I'll see you next time.